Good morning, everybody, and once again, thank you for your attendance. My name is Tim Pearce. I work within the sales team of BT Software. I'm just going to pass you over to Jonathan. Obviously, we're very delighted to be working with the IFA. I'm going to put you through to Jonathan now. I think Jonathan's going to say a few words, and then he'll pass back to me so I'm able to show you some of the key functionality associated with our software. Over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Tim. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the BTC Software-led webinar. As Tim's mentioned, the Institute are working in collaboration with BTC Software currently. I think we as an institute appreciate that technology is moving very quickly. Digitalization, so to speak, is happening, and in many shapes and forms we need to embrace it and as accountants use it to our benefit. So look, I'm delighted to introduce Tim and BTC Software to this webinar entitled Integrating Accounting and Tax Software. Hopefully every attendee gets a lot out of the session this morning, and we look forward to continuing our collaboration, our partnership with BTC. So Tim, thank you very much, and I hope everybody gains value and benefit from this morning's event.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Appreciate your kind words. Just to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, that we're actually in different buildings at the moment, so we're trying to link between each other in different parts of the country, but I think we've just about made it. So thank you so much for that, Jonathan. Much appreciated. So before I begin the demo in terms of showing some of the key functionality designed for practitioners, I wanted to spend a little bit of time just kind of confirming who we are, what we do, and what we believe makes us, in some senses, unique within the marketplace in terms of commercial accountancy software. So I'll begin from here. Hopefully you can see my screen. So the initial screen that you're looking at is obviously a page that I've designed for today's webinar. I will say before I begin that the webinar should take no longer, and I think this is kind of evident from the initial invite, but it should take no longer than an hour or so. But I just want to run through some of the themes we'll be covering as we go through the slide deck. Okay, so you can see that our marketing team have done a fantastic job of, well, to be fair, they may not have a lot to work with in that sense, but a fantastic job of making me to appear rather shady. This is actually on our Meet the Team page, so this is my new picture. So unfortunately, it's not a picture of Brad Pitt, it's a picture of myself. Just to give you a bit of background on me, I won't bore you with details, but I've worked for a number of software providers within the industry, been with BTC Software for the past 3 years. And more importantly, rather than myself, to give you an understanding of who we are and our kind of, if you like, selling points within the marketplace, and as I say, what makes us, I believe, unique, having worked for other software providers within accountancy. So we were founded in 1999. The actual initial founding was based on a relationship between an accountant in practice, who is still in practice to this day, and a software developer, successful software developer. They got together and they decided there was a place in the market to release software. So all of our software, ultimately, although it's been written by a development team, which has grown substantially throughout the last, certainly throughout the last 7 to 10 years, but essentially it's been written by an accountant. So it's been, we believe, written by an accountant, which makes it great for accountants in practice. The second point is that we are fiercely independent. We differ again, that changes the ethos of how we work. So a lot of the providers, particularly of integrated software solutions out there at the moment, having worked for a few, I can confirm, are not independent, but we are. So we are light of touch when it comes to being able to make changes and development. We like to think that we are the provider of choice for SME practitioners. That's pretty much based on the model that we're going to see today. So obviously you'll be the deciders as to whether that's correct or not. But we like to feel that we fit nicely into that marketplace. I will say that we have accountants that would do maybe from time to time 10, 20 tax returns, sets of year-end accounts, but we also have accountancy practices that may employ 30, 40 staff members that will have at least up to 25, 30 concurrent users of the software that clearly will have many, many more tax returns. So we fit within the kind of the small to medium bracket, but we have, as I say, we have users of the software on both ends of the spectrum. We have in the region of 1,500 practices upon the last count that are reliant on our software. And in addition to that, we have around about 500 accountants in business. So obviously a lot more users of the software, but around about 1,500 practices that are reliant on our software in most cases on a daily basis. Where we're located, so we are based in Surrey. We're just left of the M25, which makes the commute slightly hideous coming in from West London every day, but that's where we're based. So all of our operations are based in Surrey. That includes development and also the support. And I've just added this slide. This came to me late last night, but we're very much worth kind of mentioning and evangelizing over. So we were the winners of the Software Excellent Award for Best Tax Software 2017. That was staged in October of last year, which was a fun night. There we go. So that's kind of a bit of background in terms of who BTC Software are. That kind of leads us on to what we do, so what our proposition is. So we've got a mission statement, as you can see across the top of the screen. Now, I'm not going to read that out. That's there for your view. And again, you'll determine as to whether that's correct for you. But I do want to explain what we offer and what we provide. So we offer year-end accounts production. We have company house filing. We have practice management, and we have tax filing. And we've recently included a cloud solution. So that's in terms of in a package what we offer. There's many more elements, so they're the key. In no kind of real descending order there, but they're the key products that we offer within our integrated database. In addition to the software, what do we provide? So we provide complete product support. We can offer product training. And to make the transition easier for those who are using other commercial software, we provide data migration as part of the subscription. Okay, so what I want to do now, I'm going to test this by switching screens. I've got two screens in front of me. Clearly I've got my slide deck open, but on the other screen I have the software. So let me just put this to the test. I have tested it a few times, so I believe it works. So I'm going to change screens so that hopefully from here, and my colleague Dan, who's listening in to make sure everything's working, will testify hopefully in a minute, that you can now see my second screen. So I'm hopeful that you can see the database. And that is a nice lead in. It's a segue into the ways in which you can access your client's data. So here we go. So I think probably the best kind of initial starting point would be to mention that within the database itself, there are two views available to you. So at the moment, you'll see on the right-hand side, we have a number of clients. Now, what we're looking at currently is what we call the organizational side of the database. So the organizational side will show me all of my clients who are not sole traders, individual tax return clients, or individuals who are associated with organizations. So it won't show me my directors, it won't show me my partners within partnerships, etc. In order to access that side of the database, so it's really an integrated solution. It's like a two sides to the same coin. We need to choose the client option, and we move from that of the view of organizations to that of the view of individuals. There we go. So it's limited data in here, but this is the view that I referred earlier. So this is going to show me those individual tax return clients, the sole traders, and the associated organizations. So they're the two views within the database. Now, for the purposes of this particular webinar, we're going to focus on working with a limited company. In this case, it will be my demo client. It happens to be Smith Software. So just to kind of confirm the run through, what I'd like to do is start by showing some of the practice management functionality that's written in the software. Now, unlike other software providers, it's not really an add-on to an existing database. The practice management actually wraps itself around the compliance. So we don't sell practice management in isolation to the tax filing or the year-end accounts, but likewise, we sell the practice management, or it's provided through a subscription, I should say, to BTC Software. And I'll hopefully show you how it can be used. I appreciate not everybody will use practice management, and practice management, I was taught, was only ever there to be useful. So if it's creating diversion, or if it's adding time and not increasing efficiency, then it's something not to be used. But I want to show you how you can use it, and then anyone who's interested at least will then have an idea of how it fits together in that sense. So I've clicked on my demo client, who, as I mentioned, is Smith Software of Hammersmith. They're now represented with a blue line against them. And what I want to do from here is I just want to explain some of the tabs across the top of the screen and how the tabs can work to aid in efficiency potentially. So the first tab, if we're looking from left to right, relates to a details page. So the details page will obviously store information that's pertinent to a given client in terms of the details. Now, this is the kind of information that if you're using other commercial software, which I guess most of you will be, we can replicate the data found within your incumbent software and then move that into our database. We can pre-populate all of these details. And as you can see, that includes references, organization names, trading as details, nature of trade, registration numbers, etc. Now, we do have a shortcut when it comes to onboarding limited companies. So you'll notice within the initial details page, we have something called the Company House Search Check. Now, this Company House Search Check would enable me to pick up detail held on Company's House website, and it's a shortcut then to introduce that client or new client into the database. That's going to pick up information you see here alongside associated details such as contact details, associated individuals. We are in the process of writing a Company House Secretarial module which will form part of the database. Essentially, we already have the genesis created in terms of the Company House Search Check, which is an API into and from Company's House. Okay, so that's the initial page. The second page is that of some further details. So it's a bit of a colloquial term, but our practice management is labelled internally as the 3R principle. So just a shortcut, what that essentially means is it means that it provides reports. So you're going to get various reports throughout the usage of the software that I'm going to show you at quite a high level later on, and then you can set reminders for said events. So outside the reporting, you can actually have reminders set to come to you, and then finally you can confirm whether a particular event is a recurring event, and if it is, you can acknowledge that, and you can set spaces between the events in which they will be reported and reminded on again, unless you determine otherwise. If it was an event with a finite number of events, then you can recognize that, but if not, it will recur indefinitely. So here we have some key dates relating to this particular limited company. We can see obviously that they revolve around the fact that it's pertinent to the fact it's a limited company. If we were looking at another type of company, we would have another selection of key events. Before we go into the actual accounts production, before we look at the compliance, what I will do is I'll give you a definitive list of the exact type of clients you can work with. So you can see the majority of my clients listed rather on the left-hand side relate to limited companies, but we also have the ability and the relevant templates to work with partnerships, trusts, charities, LLPs. So I'll provide a definitive list before we look at the year-end accounts, and obviously this particular detail relates to the fact we're working with a limited company on this basis. Okay, so the next screen is that of contact details, so I'm going to skim through that fairly quickly. That's the kind of information we can move into the database. What I will say that if you're looking to add a contact type that's not available from the drop-down, you can select that accordingly. So our software is template driven. Essentially what that means is that you can create your own wording, your own terminology, and throughout your usage of the database. That becomes kind of more useful when you're looking to add your own events, your own tasks, and even if you're looking to create your own statuses when you're reporting on the events. That's really apparent from there because it enables you, I guess, in many cases, to sort of mirror your workflow within the practice. Okay, the next tab is that of associated individuals. So we have a number of individuals associated with this particular organization. Again, that's the detail that we can move into the database for you. If you're onboarding a client, you can use the company house search check, and that will create the company. You'll then create the individual, and you'll twin them by choosing the add option, just confirming the responsibility of said individual, and then you would pick up the individual from the drop down in the individual or from the individual list. So that's how that works. For those of you who work with subsidiaries or groups, or even if you have co-responsible, so if a limited company in this case has a director that has a number of companies, you can acknowledge that from within the associated organizations tab rather, and that will then be represented in the reporting around the organization, and also provides that quick access into the associated organization. So that's if you're working predominantly, I guess that would be with groups. But like I said, that can whittle down to if you've got a director that's got responsibility for a number of your clients. The next tab is that of appointments. Now this is a kind of a nice segue into the reporting functionality found within the database. So you can see here we have an external meeting listed with this particular client. I'm going to, as mentioned, show you from here the pending events. So I clicked on the report menu, and you can see here there's a number of reports available to me. The main report that's leaned on very heavily within the practice management functionality or practice management database is the pending events report. So what the pending events report will do, it will provide me an holistic view of all of my outstanding events associated with the entirety of my client base. So it really does provide you with that complete working schedule. Now, let's just say, for example, we wanted to run a report on, say, maybe all of the outstanding year-end accounts which are due for the client base. You can type that in, and that will bring up all of my outstanding year-end accounts. Or you might want to run a search on all of your corporation tax returns which are due, or even individual tax returns, or even what we would call a non-system event. So the way we define a system event and a non-system event is a system event is facilitated by the usage of the software, whereby a non-system event can be tracked and recorded within the software itself. So I guess payroll could be a good example of that. So I can run a search on all of the outstanding payroll activity which is due. Now, what will happen throughout the usage of the software is you'll either file a tax return and then it will disappear from the radar, so it will no longer be considered a pending event until the next event is due, or you will mark an event as having been completed, in which case, again, it will disappear from the radar. You can search not just against the event itself, but you can search against a whole host of other criteria. For those of you who would have or have multiple users of software in your practice, you have the opportunity to define as to whose task and responsibility of completing the event, the completion of the event. So you can see here within this fictitious practice, I'm a sole trader, so it's narrowed down to me. But if there are a number of users of the software, the person who creates the event is then, in most cases, charged with responsibility of completing it. Although if you have a practice manager that's assigning management of events, it will then be assigned to that given person, and that given person will then be able to manage the event. You can search via the client, so you can see here you can search via the period start dates, you can search via the statuses. So that really is the, in many cases, if you don't have practice management, that's often considered a replacement for kind of the whole kind of multi-colored spreadsheet environment. Okay, so that is the pending event. What I want to do from here is just very quickly show you how you can create an event and how you can report on an event. So we're going to go into tasks and tax returns. From here, we're going to select the add option. This is also how we move into, say, accounts production or prepare a tax return. But I'm going to select an event. Now you can see I've created an event here called Demo Dan. I've referenced Dan already today, so we'll run with that theme. So I'm going to select Demo with Dan, and that's then going to enable me to say, right, this is an event that needs to be monitored and reported against. I want recurrences set alongside this event. So this is the initial stage. The next stage is to create your own statuses. You can see here I've created a status called "This is a test," so we'll run with that initially. In fact, no, we'll make it more lifelike. So we'll go to "In Progress" because we're about to start the event. We're going to kick off the event. But you can see there you've got the ability to create your own statuses, and then you can move the event from one person to another in line with completion. The opportunity to provide a description. Now, at this juncture, this is where you would determine who's responsible for the management of the event and as to who receives the notifications and reminders alongside the event. Clearly, I'm a sole practitioner, so I've stuck with myself. But again, at that juncture, you can determine who is responsible for that, and they can manage it. When I say that, I mean the event, and they can manage it accordingly. Now, we're going to set a start date for this event. We'll set the start date as, let's run it from tomorrow, and we'll say we want this particular event to be completed by, I'm not going to go for Friday the 13th, not I'm superstitious, but we'll move over to the 16th. There we go. And what we'll then do is we'll set up a reminder for the event. So you can do that by here. You can confirm the event reminder date time that you want that to be presented to the person tasked with responsibility of the completion of the event. And we can then say, right, we want that event to come to us in, let's say, 2 minutes time. There's a free-form notes section from here. And then we can move to the all-important recurrences. So let's say this is a quarterly event. We can select rather than daily, weekly, or monthly. In fact, we will select monthly. So if it's a quarterly event, you will select monthly. And obviously, if it's weekly or daily, you select the relevant drop-downs. But monthly is the one that kind of differs, obviously, from that selection criteria. So if we select monthly, we then got carte blanche to say, right, it's a quarterly event. So we'll change the range of recurrences from every single month to of every 3 months, and that changes the range of recurrence below, as you can see there. So at the bottom, we've now got the next event due date scheduled to start on the 12th of July. Okay, so what we'll do from here is we'll save and close that event. We've now got the event listed within the tasks and tax return schedule. Now if we move to the reporting functionality and select pending events, we can then just search for that event, but obviously that event will be listed as scheduled, so you don't have to search for it. It will be apparent at the top of the pending events report if you're actually using the software. So I've got a couple of 2015 tax returns that you saw there earlier. If I was using the software Anger, obviously they would be filed and then disappear from the radar. So it's done in terms of it's chronologically dated. But you can search, as you can see here, you can search by the period start date if you wish to. Okay, so that's how you create an event. That's how you move the event into the pending events report. That's how you set up the reminders. You can see here we've got start date, due date, reminder, and the next recurrence listed. Whilst we're on the subject to reporting, I'm very briefly going to show you some of the other reports available to you. So at any stage, you can run a report on the various remits in terms of their statuses. So we can run a report here on individual tax returns, partnership tax returns, trust tax returns, it's an SA payment schedule report, and corporation tax returns. The software, as I've mentioned earlier at the very start of the presentation, the software enables you to submit the year-end accounts that we're going to look at shortly. And also the company house submission is available from within the database, so you can run a report on those two findings. And in addition, the software enables you to submit VAT returns. So it's a relatively new feature we've included. We got some response from our client base who were questioning as to whether we can include that. So we've included that rather relatively recently as a result of that kind of feedback. And again, you can run a report both on the VAT returns and also the EC sales list returns. We have within the software the opportunity to run various client reports. Time's not really going to allow me to go into that in any great detail, but what I would like to show you that's included in that is the activity time log summary. So if I wanted to run a report on time spent on a system event, because it will only pick up system events, it will do that from here. So here's the list of my, in most cases, limited companies. If I click on a limited company, it gives me a breakdown of the time spent on those relevant system events. So we don't have what I would term as a time and fees module within the database, but it does automatically, behind the scenes, it will confirm time spent on system events, automatically tracks that, provides an idle time, an active time, and an overall session time. Okay, so I think that's all that's allowable in terms of the time that we have left to show you in terms of the reporting. What I would say is that within our remit is the ability to send you over an actual full practice management webinar, which will go into this in much greater detail in terms of the reporting. So let me know if anyone has an interest in that, and I can get that sent over to you. Okay, so away from reporting, we have the option here to work with global templates. So I clicked on the next in line in terms of the tabs, which is reports and letters. I very briefly want to show you the two main groupings of letters that are available. So we have, as you can see here, client letters, and client letters is ultimately a document library. So if you already have your documents, you can introduce them into the document library in terms of client letters, and you can create what we would term as a global template. So the global template is basically a particular document that has database tags assigned to the document. So you see here we have an engagement letter. This is actually a default document that comes out with the usage of the software, but we have other documents that I've created that I've assigned the database tags to. So the database tags will pick up relevant information assigned to the client within practice management. So names, salutations, details around the practice, address details, etc. So it means that if I wanted to run, I'll show you, if I wanted to run a bulk report in terms of a mail merge, I can pick up a document. I think we'll stick with an engagement letter, and I can include all of my clients in the cycle here, and from here I can dedupe as I see fit. So I'll just qualify that, and then all of these clients will then receive the engagement letter with the database tags in action, which means it's specific to the clients that we're looking to work with on this basis. Okay, so that is the bulk report creation. If you want to, it's worthwhile mentioning, if you want to create just an individual letter, rather than having to dedupe it, you can simply say, right, we're in this client's details, so we're looking within the client hub, and we're looking at a given client, so we're looking at their details, and we're going to select engagement letter, and then you can run that directly on an individual basis, and that will be sent directly through to the client. That actually kind of leads me into the documents page. So we have, as you can see here, documents and folders. Now this is a way of storing information relevant to a client in terms of the documentation. You can see here I've created my own folders. I've got 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018. So the idea is you can actually either move in folders from your current infrastructure, which will move them in Lockstock, or you can replicate your folders and move them in. It takes literally seconds to move in documents on an individual basis once you've created the folders, and you'd move them in by confirming the relevant document or groups of documents, or indeed moving over Lockstock the folders as they stand. You can use the scanning option, so you're able to scan in documents double-sided, so that will go into relevant folders. So you might want to create a folder called correspondence, in which case all your correspondence can be moved into the relevant folder. You can create documents from within a relevant folder. You can email documents, and obviously what's going to be very, very important with GDPR, just literally around the corner now, is we have a portal available for you to use. So we teamed with a partner called MyDocSafe to enable you to utilize a portal within the database. We're going to look at that in a little bit more detail when we go into the accounts production. We're nearly there now. So that's the folders tab. Again, any questions that you may have, do please feel free to ask them at the end of the session, because this is very much a kind of a high level view in order to show you practice management and accounts production in the time allotted. So the next tab is that of files. Files enables you to bookmark files. So you can reference files, you can confirm locations of files, and ultimately you can categorize them. And then if you want to put some notes alongside it, you can do just that, and then it will create a bookmark against the folders. So that really is, I guess, relevant for maybe cash books, etc. But again, it's that bookmark to confirm locations of, in this case, archives. And then finally, before we move into the accounts production side of the database, I just want to show you that we have an option here to create notes. So there's an option to include fruitful notes. Now you can see here I've created a category, again, because the software is template driven. It means that you can create your own categories when you see that drop down option in the way you can create your own statuses. So I'm going to create a new reference for a telephone call. But again, it doesn't have to be relevant to telephone calls. There's a drop down, so you can create your own from the empty option. And we can include some rather nonsensical notes there. Save and close it. And we now see that we have a reference to that particular conversation in this case that's occurred. And if I were to in any way modify the notes, it then provides me with both the creation date and time and modification dates and time. I guess kind of the big picture here is to say that every client clearly have their own set of tabs. So they all have their own folders tab. So it's not really a dumping ground. In fact, it's not a dumping ground for all of the documents. It's really specific for a given client. So if I wanted to retrieve information, say it were to be a document, I might have an invoice file here, and then I'd have a drop down into that invoice to be able to pick it up and to email that invoice or use the portal found within the database. Okay, so that is kind of a high level overview of practice management. Again, at the risk of repeating myself, we do have a lot of collateral around our practice management. So anyone that wants a pre-recorded version of our practice management functionality detailed to a greater extent, in more granular detail, then let me know and I'll have that emailed over to you. Before we depart and move into the accounts production, I did mention I wanted to give you a complete definitive breakdown of the types of clients you can work with. So the idea is that we have all the templates relevant for the following remits. As you can see here, we've got charities, both incorporated and unincorporated, so we'll have those relevant templates within the accounts production. Clubs or association, companies limited by guarantee, limited companies, LLPs, partnerships, PLCs, private and limited companies, and trusts. And that's all included within the database. So we don't split out the remits you can work with. You have full access to all of these clients throughout the usage of the subscription. Okay, so let's just come out of here for now. Just to confirm, there are two ways in which you can access your clients. We're going to select, or two access points to different remits. We're going to select organization. We're then going to select Smith Software again. This time around, we're going to choose tasks and tax returns, but we're not going to create an event to report on. We're actually going to move into the accounts production side of the database. So I've selected the add option that's brought up the task schedule. I'm then going to select year-end accounts, which is a system event. And clearly, if you weren't using our accounts production, I will say you could simply select corporation tax return, as you can see it listed there, and that will take you into the tax return. And then you could pick up the accounts generated by other commercial software if you wish to in terms of the IXBRL file. But we're going to follow the full flow. So we're going to move into the year-end accounts. You can see here we have an accounting period that's been identified by the prior year. So it's a roll forward, have the description. At this juncture, you can also set up responsible users, start dates, due dates, as we saw earlier. But we're going to move from that and we're going to select View, Edit, Year-End Accounts. This takes us into the summary page for year-end accounts, and you'll notice here that it defaults. So it's defaulted to company small through to 2015. That's based on the 2015 set of year-end accounts. The point here is we are moving into, and this is dictated clearly by the accounting period, into the FRS 102 Section 1A 2015 domain. So we'll select from the drop-down, and that then enables us to confirm, as we have done the relevant template. So what we do now is we'll move into the accounts production itself. So we're moving from within practice management, and we're going to open up the accounts production side of the database. Here we go. So it's worked out all the roll forward possibilities. And the first message we're met with is regarding just that. So we're being asked if we want to move forward the officer and other data from previous accounting, or the previous rather accounting period. So we're going to agree to that by selecting the yes option. Now, it's important to mention here, I've referenced the fact that we're moving from one template to another. So you've actually got a warning in relation to that. So it's kind of notified saying, Tim, are you happy to do that? And it's worthwhile mentioning because throughout the use of the software, you will receive various safety nets. So a warning is there for your consideration. If you encounter an error, a user error, that's going to be there. Well, I'll give you sort of two prime examples. It might be that the accounts don't balance, or you've forgotten to do something, such as sign off the accounts. So throughout the use of the software, you get various safety nets to ensure you're on the right track. That's obviously there for my consideration, and clearly we're more than happy to move into the newer template. Okay, so that kind of leads into the question in terms of how do you move data into the current year. You'll see if you open up the view somewhat on the extended trial balance and clicked on it, as a result of the roll forward, we've got the prior year figures showing. Now there's a couple of ways in which, if it's not the client's first year of trading, but it's the first year of using the software, in which you can bring in the prior year. You can do exactly what I've done. So you could move in, essentially you could set up a trial balance for the prior year, and you can do the roll forward if you have a trial balance, because we have trial balance import mapping that we're going to look at in the next couple of minutes. But also you've got the opportunity just to key the comparatives directly into the prior year column. So let's say that we've got the prior year showing. How do we build up the detail for the given year? So the first and most obvious option is simply to key the figures directly into the original trial balance, as I've done here. So I've very simply keyed in a figure into the sales account, and then if I move into the profit and loss, we'll see that that's now reflected within the table of contents. There's a whole table of contents here relating to the fact that it's the FRS template. So all that legislative requirement is found. If I go back into the extended trial balance again, we'll just delete what we've entered manually into the original trial balance. So that's option one. That's obviously very, very simplistic, but that's an available option, and it would be amiss if I didn't mention that at the outset. The second option of four would be our incomplete record functionality. So for those of you who are met with carrier bags and receipts, the idea here is that you can utilize our incomplete record functionality. It's almost what it is really. It's akin to an accounting bookkeeping package within our year-end accounts. So the idea being is you would create bank accounts, and you'd enter in your opening balances, and you would select the reconciliation period. So it might be that you're preparing the books on a monthly basis. In most cases, I would have thought it would be for the year. But the big picture is you then work with the opening balances. You can select from the nominal codes that are available to you, so you can add your codes. And that's another way of building up the year-end accounts. Now, again, I don't have the time to go into great detail in terms of how you can utilize that, but I do have a video that's available for you. So if you wanted to view our incomplete record functionality, we feel that might be the best option for you, let me know, and I'll fire over an email to you. It would be a pre-recorded incomplete records demo. In addition to that, we have the option to create journals, but I'm actually going to come back to journals once I've shown you the final option, which is the trial balance import. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a journal having imported the trial balance from, in this case, a bookkeeping package. Now, the keen eye of you will notice that we don't have any nominal codes associated with our year-end account. So what our software does, and the beauty of it is, it will take a trial balance and it will use the codes that are relevant to the accounting package. So if we select trial balance import, so basically it auto maps it for you. So the idea is you would select from the drop down, as you can see here. So I'll just run through the auto mapping possibilities. We have ClearBooks, Digita, Free Agent, Iris Cashflow, QuickBooks, both online and desktop, Reckon One, Sage, VT Transaction, Zero, and Custom. Now the custom option is the big kind of differentiator between the others, in that the custom option is there for you if you wanted to create your own trial balance. It would just need to have 4 columns. It would need to have a code, a description, a credit, and a debit, and then you would select from the ledger account. And we'll look at that when we move in a trial balance that's been generated. I think we'll select the Sage option. So I'll show you how that could work for you. So it's a very simplistic trial balance that you're moving into the extended trial balance using the custom option if you have one created. As I mentioned, we've got online bookkeeping links. So if I were to select, say, Zero, and then choose the download option, as you can see from here, it's actually going to open up Zero from within the year-end accounts. So from here, you would select, or you wouldn't select, you would enter in your credentials, so your login details and passwords, and it would suck in the trial balance relevant for the client for a given year, and it would use the codes associated with Zero. So it auto map it for you in the same way we'll see shortly. We also have that with, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, there's a few here, including Reckon One and Free Agent, but we'll just select one more, choose the download option. And for those of you, as you can see, that are using QuickBooks Online, you can again enter in your credentials and pick up the client you're working with for a given accounting period. And then essentially, the way it would work for you, and I'm going to replicate this through a Sage example, albeit with Sage, if you're using a non-online variant, you'd need to save the trial balance, which you've done for Sage. You can then pick up the trial balance, and then you introduce it into the mapping field as I've done here. So this is what you'd be met with if you're using an online variant. It would suck it straight into the trial balance import mapping, and it would map with the relevant codings. In this case, we selected Sage, so it has the relevant Sage codes. Now, you can see here there's an entry in amber and one in red. The one in red I've chosen because it replicates how it would work with the custom option for the first year. So in the first year, as I mentioned, you have, well, for the trial balance, you would have an ID, description, credit, debit, value. In the first year, you would select from the relevant drop-down in terms of the ledger and account, and converts it to green, and it remembers it this from there in after in terms of the second year. So that's how the custom option works. This amber option is basically some nudge on the wrist. So Tim, are you happy with that? It wants my confirmation prior to the import taking place. I tick the box, converts it to green, and then it's then good to be imported directly into the extended trial balance. So I've now imported the trial balance into the ETB, and from here I'm going to perform a task called collapse empty data. Now what this is going to do, it's going to consolidate the view for me. There we go. So it's hidden any accounts whereby there's no numerical value associated. So it's a consolidated view to enable you to work. So if I unconsolidate, which I can do, I can show the data. We can see here that there's a whole host of different accounts that I'm not working with for this particular client. So again, what I can do is I can collapse the empty data, and again that consolidates the view. In terms of how malleable our accounts production is, it's varied. So there's lots of options here to make amendments. So I know a lot of our client base would choose to say perform tasks such as break down the sales figure. You can do that. You can collapse notes. You can change the whole aesthetics. We're going to see how the accounts look when we go from within the accounts into the tax return and back out into the accounts again. Again, there's probably too much to show you in terms of what you can do at this juncture in terms of the table of contents and what that would generate. But you can make amendments, you can change descriptors. What you need to do in order to do that, though, prior, is to unenable protection. So you'll notice here that we've got a cover for the year-end accounts. At the moment, we have protection enabled. You can unenable protection, and then you can, as I say, you can collapse detail that's not relevant to your client. You can simplify the process. You can even create your own template. Although the issue with that is that if you're running your own template, when we release the updates, you would then be responsible for your own updating of the template in line with legislation, because obviously we will update for our 2,000 users of software practices and businesses. We would let them know of the changes, and then you'd have the invitation to update the software. If you're working outside of that environment, then the onus is on you, but you can create your own templates if you wish to. We've got the table of contents, which has now been built up. The fourth option that I'm going to revert back to now was the journal option. So I'm just going to show you the journal option. I clicked on journal in terms of building up the year-end accounts. I'll choose the add option. We're going to provide a description, and then we're going to add to the ledger account. Now, the eagle-eyed of you will notice that it's utilising Sage Code. So the reason it's utilising Sage Code is it knows that we conducted a trial balance import via the usage of Sage in terms of the trial balance was generated by usage of Sage. So it's identified that, and it's listing Sage codes for us. What we can then do, oh, I've not added any value there, so there's an error. That's how an error looks that I referenced earlier. So I'm just going to enter in some value against debit and credit, and we'll see now, there we go, it's now posted the journals to the correct account. From here you can run a journal report, or you've got the option to actually, this is a very neat feature for those of you who create journals within the year-end accounts, you can actually export the changes back out to the accounting package. So this will default to Sage, you can see there, but it's got direct links through to QuickBooks Online and Xero, etc. So it recognises the changes made within the year-end accounts, and you can move those changes back out into the accounting package. There's a lot more that I could show you, but time's not going to allow that. I will just show you Officer data. So if you wanted to reference, say, director's loans, I believe in this case, you can do that from here. We've got the notes to the accounts. Now we're going to look at the table of contents when we generate the report, so I don't want to duplicate that because we're up against the clock somewhat. But needless to say, there's a lot of things you can do from this point in terms of printing off the actual accounts and making amendments from here. But what I want to do from here is I want to show you the links, and then we can show you how you can make the amendments later on. So I want to show you the link between our accounts production and the corporation tax return. So I'm going to sign off the accounts against an associated director, and then we perform a task called check the accounts and generate the IFA file. So that's a one-step process. Now, I mentioned warnings. We've got a warning here about page numbers. I've not chosen to number that yet. It automatically numbers the pages, but I've not chosen to index that yet. That's a warning. Again, that's there for my consideration. There's no errors because it balances, and I've not forgot to do anything, essentially. So we get a nice message. So the year-end accounts were checked and the IFA account files have been generated successfully. So the IFA files in this case aren't tangible. You don't actually have to deal with them. You don't busy yourself with them. It's a byproduct of using our year-end accounts. We're going to come out of the year-end accounts now, and that takes us into the summary page. And from here, in terms of the year-end accounts summary page, from here I'm going to select Open CT Return, and that takes me into the corporation tax summary page now, and then I can select Open CT Comp and CT 600. There we go. So that's fired up the corporation tax return. You can see here it's moved over detail in terms of turnover from trade or profession, profit per account. There's a couple of add backs and deductions. You can introduce additional add backs and deductions at this juncture if you wish to. It's worked out the corporation tax provision. It's listed. We have the standard 11 pages with the information populated. The only addition that I need to make is to confirm the date and to list the status of the signee, as it's the first time I've used this particular individual. I won't need to do that second time around. What I will mention before we just check and then show you the link between the corporation tax return and the year-end accounts, it's just show you the supplementary schedules that are available. So for those of you who are working with, say, capital allowances or property or R&D or director's loans, you simply select the correct, got my words mixed up there, or amalgamated, the relevant supplementary schedule, and that introduces the supplementary schedule into the table of contents, as you can see at the top of the screen there. So we've got all the supplementary schedules that you would need. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to check the return from this side of the fence now, And what our software does that other, albeit integrated solutions, don't do is that it works out the corporation tax provision and it moves it directly into the year-end account. So if we select as an automation piece between the corporation tax being worked out and journaling into the year-end account, so I'm going to select Open Year-end Accounts for the correct periods, and then that opens up the year-end accounts. So I can then select extended trial balance, and you'll notice that we've now got the corporation tax provision having been worked out shown within the year-end accounts. What that means is that the accounts that just need to be checked again with the introduction of the corporation tax return, and we should get a nice message any second. There it is, to say the year-end accounts are checked and the all-important items row account files have been generated successfully. So from here, I can come out of the year-end accounts, and I now want to show you how you can communicate in the kind of the 5-10 minutes that are left, although I will slightly overrun, so apologies for that, in terms of how you can communicate with your client. So I've got an option here to send to client for review. That's the most obvious option available to me, and obviously that's the relevant option for communicating with the client. So I've selected send to client for review. I'm then going to generate a report. So I fully appreciate that the vast majority you're going to cherry pick at this point in terms of what your client sees. I'm going to choose every element available to me within the report. Now, we could have made the adjustments within the year-end accounts. We could have clapped some data, etc. But I want to show you everything that's available within the report and the speed it takes, moreover, to create it. So I'm going to choose Create Report. Here we go. You see here I referenced the portal earlier, so we have a My DocSafe portal. They're our partner in terms of providing technology for GDPR compliance, albeit if you were to save as a PDF, you could still use your own. If you already have your own portal in place, you can utilize that, but it's kind of a default directly to My DocSafe, but clearly you can save the accounts and then you can utilize your own GDPR compliance. We've got an option to email still, save as PDF, print or preview. I'm going to choose the preview option. Now, I mentioned at the outset that we had a number of different documents available. What I didn't mention, because the time won't allow it, is that we have global templates that relate to year-end accounts, the tax return cover letters, and essentially this is the year-end accounts one. So you've got the option to build up your own global templates, in this case for the set of year-end accounts, whereby you can introduce a logo and detail pertaining to the client in terms of the database tags introduced, signatures. So this is basically a background with information that's been picked up via the database tags and introduced into the cover letter. But that's also the case for the various tax return remits. So we have one for corporation tax returns, we have one for individuals, partnerships, etc. So you would create the one template, in this case this is the year-end accounts one, and then database tags do the work. So it's there not just bespoken for the client, but also, if that's the correct word, I'm not sure if it is, but it's not that bespoke offering for a client, but it's also relevant to a given tax return year. So I'm just going to very much scroll through the page. See, we're looking at 2 of 78 pages. Just scroll through some of the notes here. I'm going to start with the kind of the meat and drink of it, which is the profit and loss account, with both of you showing, balance sheet. But again, at the risk of repeating myself, because I know it is very important to a lot of practitioners, there's a whole host of things you can do prior to this point in terms of changes that you can make in terms of adjustments, aesthetics, font size, whatever you want to do, font sizes, etc. It's there for you. It's very, very malleable, as is the entirety of our software. So I'm not going to roll through all of it. I might just show you that we've got the tax return. I don't think I have a cover letter for the tax return. There we go. So this is the cover letter that would be in place. So essentially you create your background as we did do for the accounts production cover letter, and it utilizes the relevant tags you introduce the tags into the database. So it might be show tax refund due, or it might show UTR marks, or dates, salutations, etc. But it's going to pick up information due, refund due on account, etc. You'll introduce that into the body of the text, and it will introduce that cover letter. Now that's not really become a great saver if you've got 10, 15 clients, but if you're dealing with 50, 100 clients, you're going to want that cover letter, that global template, to be produced. Okay, so let's now remove ourselves from the correspondence section with the client. What I want to do from here, well, there's a couple of things I want to do. I want to, if I just open up the accounts again, I want to show you the submission process, and then we're very much at the end of the presentation. So it's a two-stage submission process. So the first submission relates to the company's house. So if I select Submit Accounts, that opens up a submission box. You can see here it's going to default to the fitted accounts in line with the FRS template, and then I can select Submit Fitted Accounts. What it's going to do, it's going to create an electronic version of the fitted accounts, and that will enable direct submission through to the company's house. In terms of how that's actioned, well, it's actioned from the outset actually. So we go to the administration record at the top of the screen and then select options. You can see here we've got company house details where you'd enter in your CH presenter ID, and then also online filing credentials for the revenue. If you go back into the tax return again, and then select Open CT Comp and CT 600. For sanity purposes, I'm just going to check the return prior to submission. So you check the return via the check return generate IXBRA. There we go, you get the nice message say that all is right with the world. And then we can come out from here and we can choose Submit to HMRC. And then having confirmed that we have the authority to submit, we can then choose Submit, and what that's doing is creating an electronic version of the CT600, and it's attaching the all-important IXBRA file to the return. Okay, whilst we were talking about the cover letters, I think I'm just going to show you very quickly, before we finish, the tax return cover letters that I didn't get a chance to earlier. So I'll open up the relevant document here. So this is the corporation tax return cover letter. If I flip it into corporation tax return and then switch on the edit mode, this is it here. And these are the database tags that I was referring to earlier. So it might be that you want to drop in a tag that's relevant to the client. So this is detail found within practice management, or it might be that you want to drop in information relevant to the actual tax return itself. And as I referenced earlier, you can put in IR marks or CT period starts, etc., payments made for previous returns, etc. So that is a way of not having to enter in the information manually, so it avoids any manual input, thus potential mistakes. And in addition to that, it's fully automated, so it's a big time saver. So what I've done today, I've shown you practice management, accounts production. I've shown you hopefully how our accounts production automates with various accounting options on the market. There is also the links there, the APIs that are relevant for Companies House, HMRC, and with the bookkeeping packages. The GDPR process, as I mentioned, we have covered through our partner firm, but you have the option to use other GDPR compliance functionality. And I've shown you the submission process. What I haven't shown you, that I'd be happy to cover on a one-to-one basis, would be the individual side of the database, so from the perspective of working with sole traders. In the same way we had the link between the year-end accounts and the corporation tax return, we have the same link between a sole trader set of accounts and the employment pages within the tax return. Obviously partnerships, the splits there, that's all included within the database. So anyone that has an interest in finding out about that, do please feel free to let me know, and we can go through that on a granular basis. So what I want to do from now is to just open up the webinar. I'm just going to, what I was hoping to do was to change the screens. So I'm just going to do just that. And I just wanted to, really what I was hoping to do from here, it was just to explain some of the links and the incentives that we have running with the IFA. So just to mention, essentially, that you have the option here to trial the software. So I've got a screen in front of me that's showing. I don't think you can see it. I think you're still looking at the software, but just to read through it, some of the IFA membership entitlement, which I can send over to you, and be happy to do so. Through your membership of the IFA, you're welcome to run a trial of the software. So we have the ability to set you up on a 15-day trial of the solution. Happy to do that. In addition to that, we can always, with a member of my team, we can set up a one-to-one demo. More than happy to arrange that. In terms of what we offer IFA members, it's a 10% discount across the entirety of our product range. So that's the end goal. So if you were to trial the software, undertake it or undergo a demo, it sounds like a surgical procedure, it's not, I promise you. We can entitle you to a 10% discount if you were to come with us. We also offer data migration and unlimited training as an incentive through your membership. And I think that's all that's really left to say, really, other than to thank you all for your attendance. What I will do is I'll follow up your attendance by sending over an email, a thank you email. Before I do that, I will just check to see if there's any questions. I've not checked the questions here. I can see that there are a number of questions. I think ultimately time may have defeated us on the questions. So what I'd like to do, if I may, is to cover them on a one-to-one basis. So we've got a whole host of questions that I would like to cover, and they will be covered. So thank you, everybody, for your questions. But we're going to get back to those on a one-to-one basis because time's not allowed us to proceed. So what I'll say is I'll send over an email to you. We'll cover off the questions. So hang tight. We will send over an email with answers to questions. And then anyone that has an interest in trialing our software, do please feel free to let me know. We can set you up on that 15-day trial. Alternatively, we can arrange for that one-to-one demo. So all that remains for me to say is, once again, thank you for your attendance. Apologies about the fact it's overrun slightly. And do please feel free at any point to pick up the phone and request a trial. We'll be delighted to show you what our software can do. Thank you, everybody. Bye now.